Every morning at exactly 7:30 a.m., Steven Seagal walked into the same small neighborhood cafe. He never arrived with noise or attention. No entourage. No assistants. Just a quiet man in simple clothes who preferred the corner table near the window. That morning felt no different. As Steven waited for his coffee, his eyes once again drifted toward the same table near the back, where an old man sat alone. The man was thin, his jacket worn, his hands shaking slightly as he held a cup of tea. Every morning, he ordered the cheapest item on the menu, and every morning, he stayed longer than the staff liked. Steven had noticed something others hadn't. The old man always waited until the cafe was busy before entering. He spoke politely, avoided eye contact, and never complained, even when ignored. Some mornings, he barely touched his food. Without making a show of it, Steven walked over and placed a small plate of food on the old man's table. "You don't have to," the old man said quietly, embarrassed. "I want to," Steven replied, smiling. No one should eat alone. That became their routine. Steven paid. The old man thanked him. They talked about simple things, the weather, old movies, how the city had changed. Never about money. Never about the past. The cafe staff barely noticed. To them, it was just another old man being helped by another customer. Some even rolled their eyes, whispering about freeloaders when they thought no one was listening. Steven heard everything, but said nothing. He didn't know who the old man really was. And he had no idea that this quiet act of kindness was about to bring lawyers, bodyguards, and a truth that would shock everyone in that cafe. By the third week, Steven Seagal had memoized the cafe's rhythm. The bell above the door rang every morning at the same time. The espresso machine hissed. Plates clinked. And without fail, the old man entered a few minutes after Steven, moving carefully, as if trying not to be noticed. Their routine continued. Steven would order his coffee. The old man would sit at the back and quietly ask for tea or toast, always something small. And Steven would casually add an extra plate to his own order, sliding it toward the old man without ceremony. "Thank you," the man would say, eyes lowered. "Anytime," Steven replied. But something else became impossible to ignore. A few of the cafe staff had started watching the old man differently. Whispers followed him when he walked to the counter. One waitress sighed loudly whenever he stayed longer than expected. The manager, a sharp-eyed man with an impatient voice, often stared from behind the counter, tapping his fingers as if counting minutes. One morning, Steven overheard the manager mutter, "He should be buying more if he's going to sit here all day." Steven felt a familiar tightening in his chest but stayed quiet. The old man, as if sensing the tension, began arriving earlier and leaving faster. Some days, he barely finished his tea before standing up, nodding politely to Steven. "I don't want to cause trouble," he said once. "You're not," Steven replied firmly. "You're a customer." The old man smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Around them, customers began to notice the dynamic. Some looked uncomfortable. Others pretended not to see. A few pulled out their phones, recording casually, not sure why, but sensing something wasn't right. The manager's patience was wearing thin. That morning, he walked past the old man's table deliberately, brushing against the chair. "Just so you know," he said coldly, "this isn't a shelter." The cafe fell quiet for half a second. Steven looked up slowly. The old man froze, embarrassed, his hands shaking slightly around his cup. Steven said nothing, yet. But the way he watched the manager walk away made it clear. This routine was about to change. Have you ever seen someone treated unfairly like this? Comment below which country and city you're watching. The breaking point came on a quiet morning. The cafe wasn't busy yet. Only a few customers sat scattered around, laptops open, coffee steaming. Steven was halfway through his drink when the old man arrived, slower than usual. His steps were careful, his shoulders slightly hunched, as if he already knew what awaited him. He ordered tea. The manager didn't even look up. "Cash first," he said sharply. The old man nodded, fumbling with a few crumpled bills. His hands shook as he counted. Before he could finish, the manager sighed loudly. "You know what?" he snapped. "I've had enough." The room went silent. "You come in here every day," the manager continued, voice rising, "sit for hours, barely buy anything, and take up space. This isn't a charity." The old man's face flushed red. I'll leave," he said quickly, standing up so fast his chair scraped the floor. Steven stood up too. "That's not necessary," Steven said calmly. The manager laughed. "And who are you supposed to be?" "Just a customer," Steven replied. "Like him." The manager's eyes narrowed. Then mind your business. Stephen didn't raise his voice. He didn't step closer. He simply stood between the manager and the old man. There's no rule about how long someone can sit here, Stephen said. He paid. He's respectful. That should be enough. A woman near the window looked up from her phone. A man by the counter stopped stirring his coffee. Everyone felt it, the shift in the air. The old man tugged at Stephen's sleeve. Please, he whispered. Don't make it worse. Stephen looked at him gently. You deserve respect. The manager scoffed. Respect is for paying customers. Stephen's eyes hardened for the first time. Then maybe you should remember why this place exists. The manager clenched his jaw, clearly furious now. You keep talking, and you can both leave. Stephen didn't move. Neither did the crowd. People were watching now, really watching. If you were in Stephen's place, would you stay quiet or stand your ground? Comment stand if you believe dignity matters. The manager took a step forward. And in that moment, everyone knew. This situation was far from over. The cafe felt different after that morning. Stephen noticed it immediately. The old man still came, but now he sat closer to the door, as if ready to leave at the first sign of trouble. He spoke less. Smiled less. When Stephen offered to pay, he hesitated longer than usual. You don't have to keep doing this, the old man said quietly one morning. Some people don't like it. Stephen met his eyes. That's not your problem. The manager, on the other hand, made his presence known. He hovered near the counter whenever the old man arrived, arms crossed, watching. He never said anything directly, but his look said enough. One afternoon, as Stephen returned from the restroom, he overheard the manager speaking in a low voice near the kitchen. I don't care who helps him, the manager muttered. He doesn't belong here. Stephen paused. That sentence stuck with him. Later that morning, Stephen sat down and leaned slightly toward the old man. You don't have to explain, he said. But I get the feeling you've dealt with this before. The old man let out a slow breath. People see what they want to see, he replied. Sometimes it's easier to let them. Stephen studied him more carefully now, the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence beneath the wear. This wasn't just a man who had fallen on hard times. There was history there. Discipline. Something unspoken. Before leaving, the old man placed his cup down carefully and said, almost as a warning, tomorrow. Things may be different. Stephen frowned. Different how? The old man only smiled faintly. Just, trust me. That night, Stephen replayed the moment in his mind. The look in the old man's eyes wasn't fear. It was certainty. The next morning, as Stephen walked toward the cafe, he noticed something unusual. 2 black vehicles were parked across the street. And for the first time since they met, the old man was already inside. Sitting perfectly calm. Stephen had no idea that the quiet routine was about to end. And that the cafe would soon witness a truth no one was prepared for. The cafe doors opened with a sharp jingle. Conversation stopped. 4 men walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark suits that didn't belong in a small neighborhood cafe. Their eyes scanned the room instinctively, not like customers, but like men trained to assess danger. Behind them came 2 more figures. Both wore crisp suits, carrying leather briefcases. Their expressions were calm, serious, professional. The entire cafe froze. The manager straightened immediately, wiping his hands on his apron. Can I help you gentlemen? He asked, forcing a smile. The men didn't answer. Instead, they stepped aside, forming a quiet line near the entrance. One of them spoke into a small earpiece. Another subtly positioned himself near the door. Stephen felt the shift instantly. These weren't troublemakers. These were bodyguards. A nervous whisper spread through the cafe. Who are they here for? Is this about that guy? Did someone call lawyers? The manager's eyes darted toward Stephen. He swallowed hard. Stephen remained seated, calm but alert. He had dealt with enough intense situations in his life to recognize when something serious was unfolding. Still, he didn't move. He simply watched. The lawyers stepped forward. Excuse us, one of them said firmly. We're looking for someone. The manager nodded quickly. Of course, just tell me who. But the lawyer didn't finish the sentence. He walked straight past the counter. Past Stephen. Past every table. The room was silent except for footsteps. Stephen slowly turned in his chair. The lawyers stopped. Right in front of the old man. One of the bodyguards gently pulled out a chair, standing beside him. Another positioned himself just behind, protective but respectful. The old man looked up calmly. "Good morning," the lawyer said, lowering his voice. "Sir, we're ready." The manager's face drained of color. Stephen's eyes narrowed. The cafe held its breath. Because in that moment, everyone realized the same thing. They weren't here for Steven Seagal. They were here for the old man. The old man slowly set his cup down. The small clink of porcelain against the table sounded louder than it should have. "Yes," he said calmly. "I understand." One of the lawyers opened his briefcase. "Sir, everything is prepared. The documents are ready for your review." The manager stared, frozen in place. "The documents?" he stammered. "What documents?" The lawyer turned, his expression polite but firm. "This establishment," he said, "is currently under legal review." The cafe erupted in whispers. "Legal review? For what? By who?" The old man finally stood up. In that moment, something changed. His posture straightened. His voice carried weight, not loud, but unmistakably authoritative. "I didn't come here looking for respect," he said. "I came here looking for peace." The lawyer nodded. "Sir, your patience has been noted." The manager stepped back, nearly bumping into the counter. "Wait, what is this about?" The lawyer glanced at him. 4 weeks, our client has documented repeated discrimination, verbal harassment, and public humiliation." The manager's mouth opened, but no words came out. Stephen stood quietly nearby, watching the scene unfold. The old man turned toward him, his eyes warm. "You never asked who I was," the old man said. "You never treated me differently." Stephen gave a small nod. "You didn't need a title." The crowd listened in stunned silence. The lawyer continued, "My client is the legal owner of this property." A gasp swept through the cafe. "The building?" someone whispered. "He owns this place." The manager's knees visibly shook. The old man smiled faintly. "I wanted to see how people treat others when they think no one is important." The lawyer closed the briefcase. "And now, sir, it's time. If you believe respect should be given to everyone, regardless of appearance or status, type respect in the comments." The manager looked around desperately. But it was already too late. The truth was out. And nothing in that cafe would ever be the same again. The cafe stayed silent long after the words settled in. The manager's face was pale now, his confident posture gone. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. I didn't know," he muttered. "If I had known who you were." The old man raised a hand gently. "That," he said calmly, "is exactly the problem." The room felt heavy with truth. "I didn't come here as an owner," the old man continued. "I came here as a person. And what I saw was how people are treated when they think no one is watching." The lawyer stepped aside as one of the bodyguards opened the cafe door. Outside, more people had gathered, drawn by whispers and phones raised high. The lawyer addressed the manager in a measured tone. "Effective immediately, management authority is suspended pending investigation." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The manager sank onto a stool, stunned. The old man turned to Steven Seagal. "You helped me every morning," he said quietly. "Not because you thought I was important, but because you thought I was human." Steven nodded. "That's enough for me." The old man smiled, emotion flickering in his eyes. In a world that measures worth by appearance and status, that kind of kindness is rare. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Sir, the staff will be retrained. Policies will be reviewed. This will not happen again." The old man looked around the cafe one last time. "I hope so," he said. "Because kindness shouldn't need consequences to exist." Before leaving, he turned toward the remaining staff. "Treat the next person who walks through that door as if they matter," he said. "Because they do." The bodyguards opened the door, but the old man paused. He walked back to Stephen and extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. Stephen shook it firmly. "Anytime." As they left, the cafe buzzed with emotion, shame, reflection, and quiet respect. Videos of the moment spread within hours. Millions watched not a confrontation, but a lesson. Comments flooded in. That old man tested humanity. Steven Seagal showed what real strength looks like. Kindness before identity. Steven never returned to that cafe. But the lesson he left behind did. Every morning after that, the staff greeted customers differently. They watched how they spoke. They remembered what respect looked like. And somewhere in the city, an old man smiled, knowing he had found exactly what he was looking for. Not revenge, but truth. Medium White Star. If you believe no one should ever be judged by appearance, type respect in the comments. Medium White Star. Subscribe for more powerful stories where kindness changes everything.